Rich Lighter here, and welcome to the Naked Booktuber. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about a book I just read called Giovanni'S Room by James Baldwin. It's not a very long novel. I imagine it's about 200 pages or so, and it's a pretty fast read. I would have to say at the preface that I thought the novel was very well written, but I didn't really care for it. There was something very flat about it. First, the plot. The plot is, it takes place in Paris. There's a main character, David. And David hangs out at I guess it's a gay bar in Paris, and he is attracted to one of the bartenders at the bar, a man named Giovanni, and they begin to have a sexual relationship, a very intense relationship, and they end up living together. At the same time, David has a girlfriend named Hella, and Hella, for the time being, is in Spain, not in Paris, but she's going to be returning to Paris. So I guess if you wanted to, you could call David bisexual, and Giovanni has kind of awakened in David his realization that he's attracted to men. Okay, so what are the pros of this novel? The pros of the novel are that it was a very well-written novel. It was a psychological novel. Much in the vein of, say, Saul Bellow. I'm thinking of Humboldt's Gift. I mean, it's told in the first person by David, just like it's told in the first person in Humboldt's Gift. And these are very sensitive characters. They're very aware of their feelings. Their observations are very sharp, very subtle. Again, there is action. There's not a great deal of action. It's mostly focused on psychological aspects. I did like that. I mean, I know a novel is well written when I read a novel and I find myself rereading aloud certain passages from the novel, and I feel envious and say to myself, why can't I write like that? That, to me, is the hallmark of a good novel. And I found myself rereading several of the passages in Giovanni'S Room over again and envying it, frankly. That's kind of my thermometer indication. It was very well written. Another aspect that I liked was that there were not many characters in this book, which I like. Again, the focus is psychological, not so much on action. There were very few characters. I think there were like 5. There was David, the main character, the narrator. There was Giovanni. There were these two, I guess you'd call them queens, or very, very overtly effeminate and predatory, like homosexuals. One of them was Guillaume, who owns the bar in which he employs Giovanni, and the other one is just a friend of or an acquaintance of David named Jacques. So both Jacques and Guillaume are portrayed as pretty depraved men who basically just lust after boys and young men. That's their big thing, and David is kind of disgusted by both of them. I'm not quite sure how he even got to know them. And of course there's Hella, David's girlfriend, who's not on the scene for most of the novel, and makes her reemergence in Paris at the very end for the climax of the novel. There were just basically 5 characters in this book. And like I say, it was an easy read. It sparked my interest immediately when I began reading it because it was so well written. I said, where is this going to be going? How is this going to develop? So it was very interesting. But the longer I read this book, in spite of the fact that it was well written all the way through, the novel wilted for me. It just wilted, and it sort of turned into a soap opera for me, almost, or a melodrama by the end of the novel, and that's my main objection to it. I wrote lots of notes about it, but it basically boils down to this. Giovanni, David's lover, roommate/lover, he's from Italy. He's not French. He's Italian. He's continental, put it that way. He's an extremely, as we find out, good-looking, but he's also a terribly neurotic, clingy person. And he's looking for someone to save him, to deliver him, which is true of many relationships, both homo and heterosexual, right? We don't know exactly why Giovanni is so neurotic and clingy and unhappy and tormented and confused. We know that back in his homeland of Italy, he was married once, and his wife had a baby, but the baby was stillborn, and Giovanni just kind of loses it and just leaves his wife in his homeland and just moves to Paris and just becomes a vagrant in Paris, something like that. It's not really very well explained. I don't still understand why Giovanni is as screwed up as he was. So you have Giovanni, who is extremely neurotic and clingy and screwed up. And at the same time, you have David, the main character, who is extremely conflicted about his sexuality. He's extremely attracted to Giovanni, but at the same time, he can't deal with being attracted to a man. He's very conflicted about it. So you put these two things together, Giovanni's cleanliness and neurosis, and David's ambivalence about his sexuality, and you put that together, and bam, you got an explosive situation here, relationship-wise, which is exactly what you get in this novel. Add to the mix that David's girlfriend Hella does not know that he is attracted to Giovanni, that he is bisexual, or that he likes men, or he realizes he does. So you have Hella, which makes it even more explosive and even more melodramatic. So like I'm saying, as good as the novel is from a psychological point of view, it kind of really coagulates or comes down to a tale for me of a person being tormented by their sexuality. That's it. And it kind of becomes a soap opera at the end. At the end of the novel, when Hella realizes that, here you have David, and David can't stand being with Giovanni after a while because he just can't stand being with a man. He hates himself for his sexual feelings to Giovanni as much as he attracted to him, right? And he feels very bad about this because he feels bad for Giovanni that he's like this way with him, but at the same time he feels bad for Hella. So he feels bad for Giovanni that he led him on, and Giovanni is head over heels in love with David, and at the same time he feels very bad that he led Hella on because Hella was thinking he was going to get married to her. So he feels bad, basically, Giovanni. He's very conflicted. And I understand that. It becomes clear, but it becomes very much like a soap opera by the end. At one point at the very end, David says, I'm quoting now, he says to Hella, after she discovers his affair with Giovanni and his bisexuality, he says to Hella, one day when you are happy, try to forgive me. It sort of degenerates into this kind of a really melodramatic soap opera, sappy kind of thing at the end. So in a way, I was hoping for more out of this novel than simply a novel about a man conflicted about his sexuality and unable to commit himself one way or the other. It kind of boiled down to that. It kind of boiled down to also, I guess, kind of like a social commentary on the taboos of homosexuality in the 50s, the severe taboo about it. It seemed to be more of a novel by the end of social criticism of the cultural climate at the time. I mean, would David have hated himself as much if he was living now in the 2020s? I don't know, maybe not. So the novel seems a little bit outdated to me. I wish there had been something else, that it wasn't just about this kind of soap opera, melodramatic thing about David and his sexuality. I thought the novel would give us a bit more than that. And it didn't. And it left a bad taste in my mouth for that reason. Another reason it left a bad taste in my mouth is, now, James Baldwin was a gay man. I never read anything by Baldwin, but I did know that. He was pretty out about it, right? And yet, in this novel, he portrays the homosexual and gay and bisexual, I guess homosexual lifestyle as a very, very negative thing. I mean, these two characters in the novel, Guillaume, the owner of the bar, and Jacques, these are portrayed as basically sexual predators, real, lowlives, degenerate faggots. That's the way they're kind of very sophisticated. Jacques in particular is extremely sophisticated. He says many, many amusing things, many cutting things in a very sophisticated, urbane way. I mean, James Baldwin got Jacques down cold, But still, I mean, these are very, very depressing, degenerative characters he's portraying. And David is in torment about his homosexual lifestyle with Giovanni. So what's the message here? The message seems to be the usual message that, homosexuality, nothing good can come of it at all, that homosexuals are basically very unhappy people. Their lifestyles are going to be terribly disappointing and negative, and everything they do is going to end in tragedy and in disappointment and in turmoil because of their forbidden lifestyle. This is what it kind of boils down to by the end of the novel for me. Quickly, the novel degenerates. I'm not going to give you the spoiler about how the novel ends this time. I usually do, but I'm not. So it was kind of a surprisingly disappointing novel in that respect. The novel began with me with a lot of promise. I was really very interested in it. I really love novels told in the first person by very psychologically sharp characters. But as I say, it just kind of degenerated for me into this in the closet melodrama / soap opera by the end of it. That's it. Thank you.